Hey, what's up everyone? This is MK Azerbaijan with you today. Yes, I'm that guy from We Play Tournaments that was mixing the hell out of everyone from start to finish. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do today is to actually teach you to mix your shit up in the most efficient way with a character that we all know and love, and that is Sonya Blade. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to DashFight for more content and also check out their website for anything FGC related. And also stick to the end of this video to see what character guide is coming up next. Now when we talk about Sonya Blade, we're talking about a risk heavy and lower head mix-up based game style. But many players consider her a weak character, and there's actually a reason for that. The thing is, most pro players in competitive Mortal Kombat demand from a character solid footsie tools, good staggers, great mids, safe game style, and unfortunately Sonya lacks most of them, and the tools that let her open up the opponent are unsafe most of the time. But it doesn't mean that, she's an unviable character. She just requires you to approach a lot of competitive Mortal Kombat a bit different. For a comparison, let's take Johnny Cage, right? Now, Johnny Cage is widely used in competitive scene. He doesn't have any lower head mix-up gains, but strings that he mostly uses are all safe. Therefore, every time he tries to open you up, he tries a bit harder, but he's not risking a full punish on his face either. Now, for Sonya, it's completely opposite. The risk is getting higher, but the difficulty of opening up is getting lower. So if you're kind of a player that likes to get in, like a crazy beast who doesn't give a fuck if it's gonna get killed unless the prey is there, if you're confident about being, unpredictable and confuse your opponent in a way that they've never seen before, Sonya Blade is a perfect character for you. Before checking her best buttons and strings and what role they play on building the game plan, keep in mind that Sonya player has to play with fire all the time, so try not to burn yourself, because most of the things that lead to big threats can be punished if your opponent is woke enough. So with that in mind, let's start with her best buttons. Now standing one is her fastest high attack. It's a great anti-air, great for punishing your opponent obviously because it's a jab. And it leads to the two strings, 112 and 134. Now 112 is a double high attack, and the thing about 112 is that it's only useful when you have the ring cancel as one of your variation tools, because with the ring cancel you can actually connect 1-1 to the launching attack, which is back 1-2-3, and other than that it is not recommended to use the string. Now second one is 134. Now 134, even though it's trash, you will have to use it in many situations. So 134 into rings can be punished by your opponent using the jab or flawless block. So you have to stay woke and use it only if you see your opponent doesn't respect the threat of the rings and immediately attacks after blocking the full string. Now 1-3 on the other hand is a stagger that is -7 on block, and it can be reacted by your opponent in certain cases, but it is not as bad as it sounds. It is also good if you use 1-3 into ring instead of 1-3-4 into rings most of the time, because your opponent cannot punish it using the jab, and their only option is to flawless block it. Now, if you see that your opponent is ready to flawless block, or they're just expecting you to do the EX rings, then just don't do it. Instead, stagger the ring. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, you have to be crazy when you're playing Sonya, and it's a really useful option. And also keep in mind that you have to be careful all the time, since 1-3-4 has a long recovery. If you whiff it somehow, or if your opponent breaks away on time, he can easily punish you for using the full string like this. Standing 3 is a really good button that starts your fastest string. It's a really good stagger. It leads to the string 3-3-3. Now the thing about this string is that if you don't feel like mix-upping your opponent, use 3-3-3 to shimmy your opponent. It has some whiffing issues, but it's not a big deal in 99% of the time. Now down 1, even though it's a poke, it is used as an anti-air in majority of the time and is an amazing anti-air due to its great hitbox. Down 3 is her best poke. It's the fastest low attack Sonya has, and it's an important tool to get in, and it's really good to check your opponent with down 3. Now forward 2 is rarely used as a button, but it starts a really good string that is forward 2-1-4. This string actually resets the neutral. Now if you want to have some space against your opponent, use this string. It's really useful in that position. Forward 3 is an armor break. It's slide plus on block and low crushes the pokes. It's an important footsie tool, but keep in mind that it is also really easy for your opponent to whiff punish that boost, so use it very carefully. Now forward 4 is her best mid, and it's usually used for checking your opponents most of the time and preventing the mash. Now the button that starts her mix-up game is back 1. Now back 1 is a great footsie tool and it's pretty fast. It's a 9 frame high, and this is the most important button that she has, so you have to stick with it and make this button your primary tool in your game plan. Now it leads to 2 strings. One is back 1, 2, 3, the other one is back 1, 4. Now back 1, 2, 3 is an overhead launcher that is unsafe on block, so the best way to use it is to actually punish your opponent. Using back 1, 2, 3 as a part of your mix-up game is wrong and should only be used if you're too confident that your opponent's gonna eat that overhead. Otherwise, it is too much risk, even for Sonya. So instead, you have to use back 1, 2 as a part of your core mix-up game. Even though it's -9 on block, it can only be punished if your opponent makes a hard read, because there is always a threat for back 1, 2, 3 and back 1, 2 into rings, which is also unsafe. So the irony is here that whatever you actually do is leading to unsafe stuff, but you have to have such a diverse mix-up game and you have to be so unpredictable that your opponent actually can't resist and suffer under these unsafe circumstances. Now the other string is back 1, 4. Now it has to be used alongside this back 1, 2 because it's a string that leads to low attack, and it's a part of her mix-up game. And keep in mind that back 1, 4 into rings can be ducked by your opponents, while slide, which is back forward 4, cannot be ducked. So again, it's all unsafe stuff that is leading to some juicy damage, but if you don't feel confident, then just use back 1, 4. It will give you the smallest damage, but is the only safe option in her mix-up game. Alright guys, now I'm gonna show you some BMB combos, to be exact 3 combos, 2 mid-screen and 1 in the corner, because I don't feel like it is necessary to actually show you all the possible combos she can land, since they all pretty much end in the same way. And as a player, I strongly believe that if you start to learn Sonya, if you know how to play her, eventually, like in a very short time, you'll manage to improvise and land those other combos by yourself if you know these 3. Now that we know pretty much everything about Sonya, let's see what this character is trying to do and what are her weaknesses. Now starting with the weakness, Sonya's main weaknesses are her unsafe game style, as we discussed before, and also the lack of good mids. This is actually the reason why a lot of high level players tend to mash against Sonya, because her normals that lead to big threats are all starting from an high attack. That's why as a Sonya player, you have to check your opponent more than others when you're in slide advantage or in OK position, using the buttons like forward 4 or down 3, it's up to you to decide. This actually might not seem like a big deal, but it is a huge problem. Because after your opponent's turn is over, you still have to think whether I'm gonna get mashed or not, while other characters like, I don't know, Jackie Briggs or Liu Kang can use their mid attacks to pretty much cover all the possible counter options. It is like you have to make decisions in positions where you shouldn't at all, even though you're in an advantage. This problem actually gives your opponent extra mind games, not to you. Therefore, if you check your opponent more than you have to, you will lose your turn every time without having a big reward. On the flip side, if you go for high attacks more than you have to after your opponent's turn is over, you're gonna get mashed really hard. That's why you have to balance these two factors in a way that your opponent can't actually resist and actually respect your turn. Sonya doesn't have that much of a variety when it comes to variation select. Her optimal variation usually has ring cancel since it can overextend the combos as we discussed before. And now you will ask them why the hell you're not using the cancel yourself. Well, it's because even though I'm a competitor, my hands are really slow, so I had to compromise it in some other ways. Like I had to go hardcore way all the time, but it is not recommended. Trust me, if you don't have the same problem as I do, then ring cancel is the most optimal way to use Sonya because you will benefit a lot from it. And in my philosophy, marching orders is another special that is really important in Sonya's game plan. Even though you lose the turn on block, it is really hard to anti-air and flawless block that move due to its different timing. And in that way, you can actually mix your jump kick that gives you plus on block with your jump punch that jails on block, and mixing these three in a proper way will definitely mess your opponent's mind really hard. Other special moves are all playing partial role in your game style, like Ops Drop is really good against jumping characters like Jackie Briggs, Crushing Counters is the fastest parry in the game and you can actually apply it for the majority of the gaps. Downward Energy Rings is good when you want to throw the projectile from air to the standing opponent. Soaring General is an armor break special that is really good against the low specials. Orbital Drop is really good to strengthen up your zoning game. And last and the worst one is the Summoning Drone. It's the worst special that she has, and I don't recommend you to use it at all. So marching orders and ring cancel are the two that is really important for you to use, and the third one is optional. It is up to you to decide. Now we already know that Sonya is a beast when it comes to mixing your shit, but it doesn't mean that it is always the best option. First thing you have to do is to analyze what character you're playing against. Should I prefer the zoning game? Should I prefer the rushdown game? Or I don't know, keep my opponent on mid-screen? It all depends on the matchup and life lead. Like for example, Sonya does better on full screen when playing against characters that don't have teleports or better projectiles, so in some cases it will be you who will force the opponent to get in, and in other cases it's a vice versa, like your opponent will force you to approach. Like if you look at this chart, we can see that against the majority of the cast, Sonya has to get in. Of course, against some characters your obstacles will be easier, but with some it's gonna be way too harder. But there are also some characters that can actually give you a problem in close range rather than in wide range. In that case, try to play a keep away game and make them approach you instead. But with some characters, Sonya actually feels kinda comfortable in any range on the screen. Against such characters, it is up to you to decide like what kind of game plan you wanna build. You can play aggressive, like getting yourself and mix them to the bottom, or just keep it simple, cover up the distance all the time and throw projectiles. Thank you so much guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful to understand what Sonya Blade is all about. By the way, you can also check out the text version of this video through the link in the description below. And once again, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more content. I'll see you soon with my next character guide, which is going to be the son of Argus and the Danian prince himself, Ray.